Just a few years ago, ships carrying over 5,000 people were thought impossible to build. But a revolution in technology has transformed a designer's fantasy into a passenger's reality. And the proof of their success lies in the ever-increasing millions who fall in love with the life offered by the cities on the sea. Life aboard the cities on the sea is a feast for the senses, a condensation of 100 pleasurable activities into 1,000 feet of steel, glass, and wood. And everything, even eating, is designed to entertain.
They're attracting a kind of passenger who is determined to extract the fullest return from their cruise, and that includes a lot of splash and a lot of show. The kind of week-long holiday that they can go home and talk about and which they'll come back and do again and again.
Quietly underlying all this fun is a technological revolution. Now it's possible to put 4,000 passengers aboard one ship and provide them with so many entertainment choices that arriving in port is almost an afterthought. Today's mega ships are the descendants of the transatlantic liners, beloved ships like the Queen Elizabeth and the Queen Mary. But the Queens were built to be means of transportation. Once the race was for the fastest ship, and nations competed for the blue ribbon of the Atlantic. Today, the race is to produce the biggest ship with the most sophisticated technology, for the ship is now the destination.
The ships are large enough now that they offer literally a myriad of daytime activities, nighttime entertainment choices. It's all about choice. Whether they elect to use all those choices over the span of a 3-day, 4-day, or 7-day cruise, that's entirely up to them. But at least it's there.
Naval architects, engineers, and designers use the latest technology to fulfill the ship owner's demands for excitement and variety in ship design. This challenge escalates as ships get bigger and more complex.
Creating grandeur within a limited space on board a ship is probably the most important part of a design. Space is the biggest thing that you can give people, and it's the most precious thing on board.
The designers must begin by finding ways to give passengers everything they take for granted on land. Things like electricity, trash and sewage disposal, hot water, cool air, and clean water to drink and play in. But they must duplicate these services within a tiny fraction of the space. Accomplishing this design feat requires a huge computer capability, one equal to that needed to design a city of hundreds of thousands of people. The Fincantieri shipyard in Italy is one of only a handful of shipyards with the skill, knowledge, and computer capabilities to take on this task. The difficult challenges faced by these designers would have been insurmountable obstacles just a few years ago. In the past, printed transparencies were used to envision the ship. Today, computer-assisted design, known as CAD, provides 3D imagery to create layer upon layer, deck upon deck of the ship. Like putting together the pieces of a 3D puzzle, the designers integrate hundreds of miles of pipes, thousands of miles of cables, the air conditioning, electrical and desalinization plants, and the waste disposal and sewage treatment facilities. Even the smallest change to the pieces in this puzzle creates repercussions throughout the ship.
The one thing I learned as an architect, and this is probably maybe the hardest lesson for an architect to learn, is that when you don't want to face that problem on the paper in a year or 2 years, that problem is going to be steel and stone and marble, and it's going to be there, and it's going to be real.
The urban design of a megaship must take into account the storage and positioning of huge amounts of fuel, supplies, spare parts, ballast, and drinking water, all within a restricted space. Just a few years ago, the only way to test the seaworthiness of a ship was by putting an exact model in a tank that would simulate various wave actions. Now, CAD allows engineers to simulate storms in the computer and test the hull for potential weak spots. Besides the flow of water, designers must consider the onboard flow of people, luggage, air, food, even dirty linens that are whisked away to giant laundries passengers never see. The ship's designers must create 2 separate worlds, one for the passengers and one for the crew. Managing the flow of thousands of passengers is a challenge as well. Designers provide passengers with many different places to explore in a setting that never feels crowded. The goal is to create a sense of intimacy within a population of thousands.
A cruise ship is an ideal city in a way. You have great restaurants, you have great shows, you go to interesting places. And ultimately, I'm designing the ship that I would like to cruise on, and I like it to be aesthetically and intellectually stimulating, as a great city is.
While the computer has become an important design tool, it is still human imagination that conceives a city at sea.
At the beginning, we always try to explore alternatives that are not very often usual. No computer can conceive these lines. That is certain.
In the 1930s, designers of the famous transatlantic liner, the Normandy, were the first to break with tradition in creating ship interiors. Inspired by the latest fashion, they used an Art Deco theme to invent a sleek, modern style unlike anything found on the sea.
It's the quintessential look of a passenger vessel, sophisticated, elegant, and dreamlike almost in a way. They were trying to achieve, albeit for a very small group of first-class passengers, this same sense of excitement and wonder that I'm trying to create. And nowadays we're doing it for, basically for everybody.
Like the Normandy, today's megaships each have a theme, a unified style that creates a unique world for the passengers. For some, the theme is modern, even futuristic.
Once you're aboard the ship, they look less and less like traditional ships that were even delivered, let's say, 10 or 15 years ago. They do tend to resemble more floating resorts. You'll see the dining rooms, for instance, on our ships now are usually multi-level dining rooms with vast expanses of glass. It's difficult to imagine, apart from looking out of the window and seeing the expanse of ocean, that you're on a cruise ship, really. It's more like a sophisticated dining room in a resort hotel somewhere.
Creating the cities on the sea is a triumph for the designers. They must balance beauty and convenience, artistry and practicality. But if innovation in design had not been matched by equally impressive advances in construction, these ships would still exist only on computer screens.
This TLC program is sponsored in part by Goodyear.
Technical and automated process. Now it's the domain of a handful of shipyards. But this wasn't always the case. Throughout the first half of the 20th century, the greatest liners in the world were built in the Scottish town of Clydebank. Thousands of workers in the John Brown shipyard built ocean liners like the Queen Elizabeth and the Queen Mary. These queens of the sea were not merely ships, but symbols of national pride. But England, the United States, and most former shipbuilding nations have largely been cut out of today's lucrative business of building the mega cruise ships. Today, the cruise lines choose a shipyard based not on national pride and loyalty, but solely on who can deliver the technology at a reasonable cost. The construction of the megaships is now carried out in a few great shipbuilding yards in Italy, Germany, France, and Finland. The workers who once built the great liners would hardly recognize this aseptic place as a shipyard. Here at the Kverner-Massa shipyard in Finland, engineers in control rooms watch a light and water show as gigantic sheets of steel are cut underwater by a computer-directed laser. Later, they are welded automatically by robots.
Nowadays we don't have to draw on the plates what we want to cut. The computer itself steers the cutting machines. Cutting is mainly done underwater today to make a finer edge of the steel plates.
By using the latest in construction technology, Kverner-Massa has created some of the most sophisticated ships on Earth, including Royal Caribbean's Voyager of the Seas. Shipbuilding has evolved so far that the giant cruise ships of today can be built faster than the smaller, less complicated ocean liners of the past. Where once construction time was measured in years, now it's measured in months, thanks to modular construction and prefabricated cabins. Most megaships contain more than 1,500 cabins. They're built as separate units by a contractor outside the shipyards.
When this cabin block is brought to the ship, it brings with it all the equipment. And this of course saves a lot on the logistics and the transportation on board.
These modular units already contain wiring, plumbing, furniture, and even light fixtures.
Okay.
In shipyards like Kverner-Massa and Fincantieri, the three-dimensional puzzle the designers so carefully assembled in the computer becomes reality. But while the designers moved their pieces with the push of a button, the shipbuilders must use gigantic cranes.
We are able to install big sections, about 800 tons each, where really a lot of work is being already completed. So we can start to do the accommodations in the same moment that we install these big sections.
Once they're put together, the pieces are welded into place. These pieces are huge. The ship is enormous, but the tolerance for error in fitting the pieces together is a mere 1/4 inch. Today, there seems to be no limit to what shipbuilders can accomplish.
Madrina, in nome di Dio, taglia.
Once it was thought a passenger ship could never exceed 100,000 tons. But in 1996, Carnival's destiny proved not only that it was possible, but that it could also be highly profitable for the cruise lines and affordable for their passengers.
Today, cruises are for basically average people. You don't have to be a millionaire to go on a cruise, because technical advances in naval architecture and ship construction allowed them to be built for a cost that can be transferred to an affordable passage price.
The success of Destiny led to a very expensive game of one-upmanship between the cruise lines, each competing to build the newest Titan.
I name this ship Grand Princess. May God bless her and all who sail in her.
In May 1998, Princess Cruise Lines launched the 109,000-ton Grand Princess. And for a brief time, she reigned supreme. Royal Caribbean soon answered the challenge with the 142,000-ton Voyager of the Seas. When launched in November 1999, she became the largest passenger ship on the planet.
And this is the fruition of many people's labor over many years, and to finally get to that moment of the ship being delivered from the shipyard is quite spectacular.
But how long will this new Titan wear the crown? Over the next 3 years, there will be at least 35 new megaships worth $10.5 billion, with more cabins, more entertainment, and new and dazzling technology. But once the champagne bottle has been smashed and the applause has faded, the moment of truth arrives. What happens when the fantasy ships, the cities on the sea, meet the physical reality of operating on the ocean?
This TLC program is sponsored in part by the ACE Group, Global Insurance.
Long before passengers ever step aboard a newly created megaship, these giants must first pass their sea trials. Week-long shakedown cruises are designed to put the new ship through its paces. For Royal Caribbean's Voyager of the Seas, the largest cruise ship ever constructed, the sea trials have special significance. This is the first time anyone has tried to maneuver a 142,000-ton passenger vessel. Engineers, designers, and officers on the bridge wait expectantly to see what Voyager can do.
You know, from what I have seen since we left the pier on Tuesday morning, it has been handling much better than we ever could have thought in advance. She is doing so well that she's like a small yacht when it comes to handling.
The ease of handling comes in large part from the latest innovation in marine propulsion, the Azipod. Developed by the Finnish Maritime Administration for ships in ice-laden waters, the Azipod was first installed on a cruise ship in 1997 at the Kverner-Massa shipyard.
The Azipod replaces the conventional propulsion system's rudders by being able to rotate full 360 degrees unlimited, giving the ship very good maneuverability by giving the captain a possibility to direct the thrust from the propeller in any direction, to be able to control the vessel better in situations where very quick maneuvering is required. For example, in port, and of course also at sea.
The Azipod eliminates the need for long shaft lines, reduction gears, and rudder machinery. And the Azipod's electric propulsion engines are located outside the hull, leaving more room inside for other uses. Even with the fuel-efficient Azipod system, these megaships can burn through hundreds of tons of fuel in a day. One way the megaships cut fuel consumption is by adding a bulbous bow.
We call it the sexiest part of the ship, there at the front. And it's really a very practical part of the ship. What we are doing is extending the hull.
Extending the hull reduces resistance as the ship cuts through the water, so the engines don't have to work as hard. Navigation has also undergone a technological revolution. The sextant, charts, and magnetic compass that were once a seaman's only navigational tools are still required on today's cruise ships by international regulations, but they are almost never relied upon. Except when docking, the ship is steered by a space-age autopilot using the Global Positioning System and geosynchronous navigation satellite. One of the cruise line's goals is to make sure passengers can enjoy an ever-changing ocean view without feeling the ever-changing ocean swells. Engineers program computer-controlled dynamic stabilizers to counteract the movement of the waves. Extending like underwater wings, they decrease the pitch and roll of the ship and virtually eliminate seasickness. The revolution in technology requires a revolution in the training of the megaship's officers. At the Simulation Training and Research Center near Miami, Florida, they're trained to use the latest propulsion and navigational equipment in computer-controlled mission simulators. A 360-degree full mission bridge simulator realistically portrays docking and maneuvering.
The simulator is capable at Star Center of different weather conditions. You can go from day to night, but you can also have fog, rain. The ability to dim the lights and to make it more realistic in a situation approaching a harbor is really important.
In the Star engine room simulators, engineers learn to use sophisticated monitoring equipment that will alert them to potential problems at sea.
We try to keep from losing the plant, losing situational awareness, being able to stand in all conditions, maneuvering and everything of this nature. In case there is a problem, you want to avoid losing the engines.
Inside the engine room of the Grand Princess, engineers watch over 6 diesel engines worth $24 million. The engines produce enough electricity to power a city of 186,000 and allow the Grand Princess to reach a speed of 23 knots. In contrast, the fastest and sleekest ship of the 1930s, the Normandy, was powered by 4 turboelectric engines and achieved a top speed of over 32 knots. But speed is not a selling point for the fun-seeking passengers of today's megaships. Instead, the cruise lines emphasize beauty, comfort, and reliability. Passengers expect everything on board to work perfectly.
We are self-contained. We have self-contained repair and maintenance divisions. So if we need carpentry work done, we have carpenters. If we need masons to do tile work, we have masons. We have our own plumbers, our own electricians. So we have to have a full city to take care of that 24-hour operation since the ships are sailing. We don't have the luxury of calling a shoreside repair service.
A ship carrying over 3,000 passengers generates more than a ton of garbage a day. So maintaining the waste disposal system is vitally important. The cities on the sea use systems that are more efficient and more expensive than in many cities on land. On most megaships, trash is quickly reduced to ash in incinerators that reach temperatures over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, or 538 degrees Celsius. The megaships must handle a wide variety of waste problems, including the disposal of hazardous chemicals.
These ships are floating cities, and they contain many of the amenities of a city, and including dry cleaning operations, photographic development facilities, and even print shops. And as you know, those are the kind of facilities on land that produce various kinds of hazardous materials, hazardous chemical materials.
In 1998 and 1999, Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines agreed to pay millions of dollars in criminal fines for illegally dumping wastewater containing hazardous chemicals.
They dumped everywhere, at sea, in port, in sensitive environmental areas, even in the shadow of the company's executive suites. They didn't care. Ironically, Royal Caribbean Cruises polluted the very environment on which its business relies. Under the terms of the plea, Royal Caribbean will pay $18 million in criminal fines, the largest criminal penalty ever assessed against a cruise line.
As a condition of their probation, Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines is investing millions in new equipment to comply with stringent government environmental regulations.
Equipment that has been available has been, frankly, very difficult to operate, very time-consuming, high maintenance, high effort. And one of the things that we have done is we've introduced with the manufacturer a new type of bilge water separator which purifies the water relatively easily, that's important, but also 3 times as pure as required by any government's regulation.
The latest innovation in marine engines is expected to help the megaships operate more cleanly, and Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines will be the first to take advantage of it. Shown here at a recent Sea Trade convention in Miami, the gas turbine engine is proving to be highly reliable, extremely powerful, and environmentally friendly.
These turbine plants are incredibly clean burning. And for the same power, we're able to reduce the emissions by 80 to 98%. Tremendous reduction in emissions. And still with a even better power plant from the customer's point of view because there's less noise and vibration.
The technological revolution that created the cities on the sea continues to provide the means to operate these colossal queens of the ocean safely and cleanly. But as with all human endeavors, the success of the operation still depends upon the training, the motivation, and the choices made by the humans controlling the technology.
This TLC program is...
The perfect vacation. That is the elusive utopia many seek, but few discover. However, the perfect vacation is exactly what the cruise lines claim to offer. And for millions of people every year, they seem to deliver on that promise.
The cruise industry spoils people. That's part of what we're all about. And that's what people enjoy. They've worked hard. This is their vacation. They're not just spending their money, they're spending their hard-earned time.
But as the size of the ships and number of passengers increase, so does the amount of time it takes to check in.
And that's one of the biggest complaints, I think, that we have within the industry. If a person goes on cruise, if he has to wait in line, not happy.
New technology introduced at the Sea Trade Convention in Miami promises to simplify and speed up passenger check-in. The A-Pass system embeds detailed information about each passenger on a magnetic strip on the passenger's cruise ID card.
As they move on and off the ship, they swipe the card, and so at any one point in time, we can tell whether or not they're on board or off, and if somebody does not have that card, then they're not going to get admittance to our ship. So it is a very comfortable, secure feeling that we provide.
Comfortable and secure? Yes. Boring? No. Passengers can enjoy everything from intimate nightclubs to casinos to full-scale stage productions.
We have theaters and lounges aboard our ships that seat 1,000 guests. We produce more shows than probably most production companies in the United States. We have a team within our entertainment division that is responsible to audition the dancers, rehearse the dancers, work with our choreographers and the whole production team to ensure that we have the finest entertainment.
When you have 20 dancers, singers, entertainers, and scenery moving up and down and side to side, you have to make sure that nobody's in the way of it.
But the dancers and singers aren't the only performers inhabiting the cities on the sea. Every member of the crew is part of the show. But entertaining passengers isn't the biggest challenge for the crew. That comes once the cruise is over. The advanced technology that has created the megaships has also created a potential logistical nightmare in port.
When a ship arrives in its home port, it usually arrives about 6, 7 a.m. in the morning. We are expected to have that ship sail again at 4:30 in the afternoon. On a ship the size of the Destiny that would have 3,300 guests, for example, they would have as much as 14,000, 15,000 pieces of luggage. So we have a team of crew members that remove all the luggage from the cabins, that bring it down to a particular area that we refer to as a marshalling area. And it gets put into cages that are handled by forklifts. And there's a 2-hour process to remove the luggage from the ship. And this is a whole back-of-the-house operation. We'll have our last guest out of this 3,300 guests off the ship about 10:30, 11 in the morning. By 12:30 in the afternoon, 2 hours later, we'll start embarking another 3,300 guests. So we have 2 hours to turn over the entire vessel, to clean every public area, to clean 1,300 cabins, to ensure the provisions are brought from the storerooms and the refrigerators up to the proper bars and the lounges and the pantries. 1,300-room hotel doesn't have to check in 1,300 rooms that particular day. We have to.
In addition to handling passengers and luggage, the crew must entirely restock the ship with the food and supplies needed for the next cruise.
If you can just imagine, if you have 20,000 meals per day, and for 7 days, that's in a range of 150,000 meals for the week. The operational provisioning ship becomes of such a magnitude that it is difficult to imagine 5,000-6,000 pounds of prime rib, maybe about 10,000 pounds of steaks and other meats.
Most passengers on the megaships feel they are being fed gourmet cuisine, while in fact it's mass-produced banquet-style food. In the main galley on the Triumph, 120 cooks prepare as many as 5,000 dinners each night. And at the end of the evening, that adds up to a lot of dirty dishes. The mounds of dirty dishes are something the passengers never have to deal with. But there are other unfortunate realities they must sometimes face in the midst of their vacation. In the event of illness, the megaships are equipped to provide medical care.
Medical treatment aboard cruise ships is really quite good, considering that we don't have a hospital on board, and these are not hospital ships. We do have infirmaries. Each of the cruise ships carries doctors and nurses.
Okay, good morning, Dr. Kerner.
New technology aboard the Grand Princess takes medical care at sea one step further. The SeaMed program gives passengers electronic access to some of the world's finest physicians.
So you can actually see what's going on. Over.
A satellite hookup links the ship's medical staff with the emergency department at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, California.
And Dr. Trolley has it under control now.
However, getting sick at sea can still pose unique difficulties. Even critically ill patients must remain on the ship until the next port is reached. Royal Caribbean's new Voyager of the Seas is the first cruise ship to have a helipad, enabling the severely ill or injured to be flown to the nearest hospital. But no danger is taken more seriously or fought more fiercely than fire.
On board our ships, we provide at least 100 firefighters for probably 3,000 to 4,000 people. So we're talking a ratio of about 2 firemen for each 100 persons. So the fire protection far exceeds anything you may find in the city.
Gentlemen, this is the signal that I'd like to open all the business in progress. All guests must now report through their cabins to collect their life jackets as our lifeboat drill is starting at its time. All guests must attend. Thank you.
Within the first 4 to 5 hours of most cruises, all passengers are required to attend a mandatory fire drill so that they know exactly what they will do in case of an emergency.
Cruise lines routinely conduct fire drills and train their crews to use the latest technology in detecting and fighting fires.
A fire that may start on any part of the ship will emit smoke or heat. This will be picked up by the smoke detector. It will immediately send a signal to the bridge that will be identified by an officer, and a fire patrol person will be designated or alerted to respond to that scene. Upon arrival on the scene, the safety officer provides those firemen the information regarding what actions they'll take inside the fire compartment. Having been given this information, they are told to go on air. They'll put on the self-contained breathing apparatus and have 20 minutes of fresh air supplied to them so that they can make entry and effect any kind of firefighting or rescue as necessary.
Officer, on air.
Once these men get inside, if they find a fire, naturally they'll communicate that back to the officer, who in turn will communicate this to the bridge to let the captain know what conditions are that exist in that fire compartment. And then they will continue the procedure, advancing towards the fire until it's under control or fully extinguished.
A Carnival crew's ability to handle a major fire was dramatically put to the test on live TV. On July 20th, 1998, fire broke out in an air duct above the laundry room of the Ecstasy. It quickly moved through the ventilation system into an area 2 decks above, where polyester ropes caught fire and sent clouds of black smoke billowing into the air. In the past, this could easily have been a deadly fire. In this case, there were no deaths or serious injuries.
When you can put out a fire that may look dramatic like this one did and not have anyone injured at that fire, you're doing a good job, and by God they did.
But what if there was a bigger fire on a larger ship? Royal Caribbean's Voyager of the Seas carries more than 5,000 people. The International Maritime Organization has questioned whether a ship of that size could be safely evacuated in the 30 minutes required by international regulation.
The cruise industry has expanded so fast that there are a lot of people who think that it's getting too big. For example, we're not able to, by law, have any lifeboats that are larger than can hold 150 people. And based on that, it might be better if we had larger lifeboats, but it's not in the plans that I'm aware of.
Could a disaster of titanic proportions occur on one of the modern megaships? It's a question that grows more and more important as the size of the cities on the sea continues to grow, and the future holds the possibility of ships that will carry 100,000 or more. It looks like a beautiful, luxurious passenger ship, but it isn't. This ship won't be carrying passengers, but permanent residents. The ship known as the World of Residence Sea will enable its citizens to travel the world without ever leaving home.
The whole concept of residency is to give people the opportunity to buy a home on a ship and use the home as a home whilst the ship is taking you to all the wonders of the world.
The more than 100 luxury apartments aboard Residence Sea will be fully furnished, including china and crystal. Prices range from $2 million to $6.8 million, and ownership is by invitation only.
We have certain criteria when it comes to net worth, at least $5 million, that's the absolute minimum. And we take, in fact, our people through some kind of vetting, like you would have in a co-op in New York, for example, just to make sure that from a financial standpoint, they are able, in fact, to meet the criteria. And from a personality standpoint as well, they would fit in that community. That's very important to have a certain homogeneous community on board.
At a press conference in Norway in September 1999, Residence Sea's corporate officers signed a contract to begin construction of the first true city on the sea. The $262 million ship will be built in Norway. Delivery is expected in December 2001.
What we're selling is a dream, but it's a dream coming true. It's a real lifestyle, and that's what people are buying. They're not buying a cruise, they're not buying a new residence, they're buying a way of living, which they think they will enjoy because they have the money to do it and they find it so exclusive.
Residence Sea is the first floating condo development to begin construction, but there may be even more ambitious projects on the horizon. The 2.7 million ton Freedom Ship is the largest floating object ever conceived by man. It would be nearly a mile long, and instead of elegant smokestacks and seductive swimming pools, the top of the ship would be a runway. It's designed to provide homes for up to 125,000 people, including 20,000 employees.
It includes a school system from kindergarten through college, a high-tech medical center. It includes all the stores and businesses that you would have in your regular community. The only difference is this community continuously travels around the world.
The cost of constructing the Freedom Ship is expected to be more than $8 billion. Not surprisingly, securing financing has been the single biggest challenge.
We believe at this point we have the financing lined up, in which case there's nothing to stop us from building it. It will happen.
Still, there are people who question whether the Freedom Ship will ever be completed. or even should be.
I've seen some projects for a floating island with blocks of flats on a raft that never can go into a port. But I'm a ship enthusiast myself. My feeling is that a ship should somehow feel like a ship.
In less than 30 years, advances in technology have transformed passenger ships from merely a means of transportation to a holiday destination, and now to a whole new way of life. Our love of challenge drives us to create these technological marvels, inspiring us to view the unconquerable ocean as a sea of possibilities.
TLC presents the Ultimate Junkyard Challenge, Car Jousting, a contest of champions to decide who will be the kings of the junkyard. Junkyard Wars, Car Jousting, coming up next on TLC.
Junkyard Invasion Week is going to be fantastic. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. But it helps.
Catch Junkyard Invasion Week, hosted by the Rocketmen and the Miami Gearhead, every night at 8, starting Monday, only on TLC.
Human drama.
Creativity.
Are you human?
This week we're going to war on 4 wheels.
But not with these tiddlers.
This week's challenge combines the martial artistry of medieval knights with a few modern innovations, radio controls, beefy engines, and some truly ludicrous heavy metal weaponry.
The team's challenge is to take an ordinary car and convert it into a remote-controlled fighting machine. The winner will be the team whose vehicle survives the longest in our spectacular mechanical duel to the death.
First into the gladiators' ring are the champions of 2001, Gary, Tim, and Shane, better known as the Catalysts. Over 4 blistering rounds of competition, the Cats hoovered up the Chaos crew in our street cleaner contest. Took a swing at the opposition in our mobile crane race, clawed their way into the final with their tunneling machine, and surfed onto the winner's podium with their hydrofoil.
To help the Cats, we've enlisted James Holstead, a top car design engineer from the Motor Industry Research Association.
Against the Cats, we have the top dogs, Nosha, Daz, and Kev, alias the Megalomaniacs. In 1999, they took the trophy after marching to victory on their outlandish walking machine. In 2000, they returned to defend their title in our dragster duel and won.
To help the Meg stay on top, we've enticed electronic expert Ian Walters to come and play. Ian's a wizard at robotic animation and control.
Okay, chaps, let's go beat the big pussycats. Are you ready to make another device of beauty? Yes!
It's a battle between Brainbox and Barbarian.
Teams, your challenge today is a duel on wheels. Yes, teams, I command unto you to build the most powerful, vicious, agile fighting car the Heap has ever seen.
Oh, yeah. Fighting car. Cool, baby.
Now, sadly, although we'd like to see you kill each other, the judges have decreed that the vehicles must be remote controlled. What? So the team who wreaks the most havoc on their opponent's machine will be the winners.
Okay, teams, you have but 10 hours to build your vicious fighting machines from when Kathy dongs the donger. Toll that bell of doom, Kathy.
Are you ready?
Yes! Go! Oh, well, what a fantastic challenge. Brilliant.
To build their machines, the teams will need to take a car and adapt it for remote operation of the 4 key controls: steering, brakes, accelerator and gears. Using radio control bits from a model plane, they can drive powerful electric motors to turn the wheel, push the pedals and shift the gear stick. The cars will fight over 3 rounds and score points for hitting targets on the other machine. 10 for a side swipe, 20 for a rear ender and 30 for hammering the roof. At the end of 3 rounds, the team with the highest total score will be the winners.
So for a start, we need a vehicle. The bigger the vehicle we can get, the better.
We want to have automatic transmission and power-assisted steering if possible.
Yeah, okay.
The Catalysts want the biggest, beefiest vehicle they can find for maximum weight and traction. Power steering will help because it'll take less effort to turn the wheel. And an automatic gearbox has a simple push-pull lever to go from forward to reverse, easier to automate than a manual gear change. They'll also need loads of armour plating and vicious weapons to nobble the enemy.
Hammer, spike,
cannon.
We could look up a flamethrower, I think. Is it entirely practical for the...
It's a brainstorming session. Nothing's dismissed in a brainstorming session. We write everything down.
The Megs waste no time thinking about remote controls. Their top priority is attack. Weaponry.
It'll be good to have something if we ran into the car, something's going to just flop over.
As it on the roof?
Yeah.
The Megs plan to give the Cats a headache with a massive spring-loaded hammer on top of their car. As they bash the opposition, the inertia of the hammer will bring it crashing down on the other team's roof for 30 points. The spring should then buoy it back up for another hit.
If we can obliterate the car...
All the better.
All the better, yeah. Which is the idea, isn't it? Let's not muck about. We're going to smash it to bits. And they're off. Both teams are on autopilot and full throttle. Megalomaniac Kev has already bagged his first swag. It might not look promising, but this wheelchair's crammed full of powerful electric motors.
Wheelchair motors? Good start. Excellent.
Nice.
Right, see what we can find.
You've just got a wheelchair, Kev?
Yeah. We saw a wheelchair be ideal for the motors.
Well, we just saw it on the way out, so we thought we'd grab
it. You're not, that's not going to be, you're not going for small.
No,